Hello, my name is Greg Lehman. Welcome to Moonbeams. My guest today is Dorsey Ulbrich. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, yeah, great to be here. Thank you so much. I'm
Uh,
Dorsey Craft for poetry, actually.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a
Yeah, I
split
noticed.
personality.
Yeah. Well, let's start there, I guess. So yeah, I
Sure.
had noticed that on some of your publications, and I
Yeah.
didn't know if there was a marriage or something, but yeah, do unwrap that.
Oh, no, for sure. My husband and I we're married. My last name is Ulbrich. It's probably always going to be, but I was really split like when we did get married. I was like, "Oh, like I should probably keep my last name." And then I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a poet. I'm going to publish poems. I'll just always publish under my maiden name." And that way it'll sort of still be like in my life. And it's honestly like I don't know if it was worth it. It's been a lot of trouble. A lot of people are confused, but I everything that I've ever published is Dorsey Craft. So, um,
So like in like the practical stuff, like with like
so anything to do with like poetry, like an actual like if it's a poem in a magazine, if it's the name on my book, if it's, an interview like this that I do as a poet, it's going to be craft. But at school, I'm like Dr. Ulbrich, to like my students and stuff. And I like it's extremely confusing and I still insist upon it. Um, so
there's some subtext. I mean, craft, obviously,
I know you
Yeah,
can't give it up. It's like a God-given poet name. So
and then I guess I'm curious too if like there's a bit of like a persona because I mean that's like your earlier name, and is that like useful when like entering your poetic self
mm, I,
being
I don't I don't think about it as much when I'm writing, but I do like that like I have some kind of distinction. Mainly it's about like having a connection and not just totally like throwing away my whole family name, background, etc., because I got married. But I do like that there is some kind of like distinction between the poetic work and the like more professional or professorial stuff. Even though sometimes like it would be super convenient to have it all be sort of under the same subheading, but I just kind of feel out what the situation feels like. Is this a Dorsey Craft situation or is this a Dorsey Ulrich situation?
yeah. Well, I'll dig a little deeper there too, but what words come to mind when you choose which one that you're entering?
Definitely like like I said, like anything poetic, like if I'm at a reading, I'm gonna be like, hi, hey y'all, I'm Dorsey Craft or like whatever. And for anything like if I'm talking to my colleagues or like meeting people like from my son's school or whatever, like if I don't, necessarily need people to go and find out what I've been writing about, I'll be like, "Hi, I'm Dorsey Ulbrich," and that's all you need to know. Um, I have like a way to kind of cordon off the poetry part if it feels warranted. So.
Gotcha. Love it. I haven't talked to anybody who's done that before, so it's an interesting dynamic, and leaning into complexity, I think, is part of the course for poetry as well.
For sure.
Cool. So with that, my first question here is, what is exciting you most about poetry at the moment?
Um, so I think that I thought about this question a little bit, and I feel like what I've been really interested in lately is like poetry of like the apocalypse and of end times and the ways that I see like almost it just seems like I read a fair amount of books this summer and it seems like if they're not talking about the end of the world, like what's really going on? There's so much at stake, like right now, it feels like in our current political moment and everything. And I feel this as like a reader and as a poet, as an editor, that I'm like, let's talk about like what's important here. And I love like the way that so many different poets are coming at this with so many different like techniques and forms, and like tonal registers. I think it's really engendering some interesting like experimentation, the way that it feels like we're living like so close to the edge, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's speaking to the time, of course, I can't disagree there. Like the stakes are so high, and it is such a sad time. It's an infuriating time, and meeting that with creativity and imagination, I think, is one of the best things that we can do.
Mhm.
Um, but apocalyptic literature, apocalyptic like poetry has been with us for, probably as long as there's been writing. So what would you say sets this moment of that kind of genre apart from previous reaches towards those topics?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I've been like looking into, I noticed that I was reading a lot of apocalypse books, and then I thought I would put my American literature or American poetry course sort of around that theme this semester.
Mhm.
So I went like way back, and like, there's definitely like a lot of like Puritans were writing a ton
Sure.
about
Sure. Yeah.
apocalypse. This just seems, obviously like right up through modernism and like the wasteland and everything like that. And at the same time, you also have like uh peoples that are undergoing actual like apocalyptic scenarios, indigenous people in the United States getting colonized, all of that type of stuff. I've been reading the anthologies from Joy Harjo that pull together indigenous poets like from the 16th, 17th century onward. And it's been really interesting to consider like this like hmm the Christian apocalypse, capital A, that's like this one event that's coming, as opposed to like the apocalypse or end times that have been like visited in real life upon peoples, and that like can as like for any choice as like continue to keep coming back and happening over and over, and people don't seem to care that much really. Um, So yeah, I don't know what distinguishes like our current moment other than perhaps like an awareness of that. The idea that like, oh, this, return of return of Christ or what have you, the kind of Christian capital A apocalypse is maybe not the only kind of apocalypse that there is. I think today's poets seem to be writing with a really keen awareness of that and, more of a concern for stuff that's actually happening, which is cool.
Yeah. I think the awareness is definitely on point because we can't ignore it. We all see it through just the millions of megaphones that social media is. And then also, countries being found, legally liable for culture for climate change, that is affecting our indigenous populations around the world. I think that's lending itself. But also in seeing fiction become real. It's fiction, but I think about The Drowned World by J.G. Ballard and how we are seeing, you know, places being inundated and oceans rising. And these types of imagery, this type of imagery really,
Mhm.
finds a home in poetry. And then the alarm, the stakes also, lend themselves well to poetry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes me think of like I didn't the I have a stack of little books to show to exemplify if I need to because I'm a professor and I can't be without things to touch. But what you just said made me think of Jory Graham's 22040, and also Carolyn Forcher's In the Lateness of the World, like great sort of climate apocalypse collections. It's been a while since I've read either of them, but woo,
Yeah, Caroline Forche, just
blown away, right?
A force of nature, yeah. And then yeah, I also wanted to shout out when the light of the world was subdued, our songs came through. Just an amazing.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much for coming up with that title. I think it might be like literally, no, that's a different book. Sorry. Yeah, that's the Joy Harjo anthology, right?
Yeah, yeah, and just absolutely critical. And just as thick of a book as it is, it's scratching the surface of our Native
Mhm.
American writers, going back, um, but before colonization and to our current time. Just a wonderful book. Um, but yeah, so moving along here, and speaking to, you finding your own voice to speak to your concerns and then the world around yourself. Which poets are most impactful in getting you to become a poet?
I'm pretty boring, pretty traditional. I have to say, like every time I get asked this question, the first thing that I am gonna say is my teacher at as an undergraduate at Clemson University was, the poet for me. Cy Visa, used to go by Jillian Visa, was my teacher, my absolute like formative influence, showed me that, not only like, sort of shuttled me into the idea that poetry could be a thing that people did, but also Cy's work, like in the field, I think is still incredibly innovative. Every single book is a new thing. Very conversational, sort of like accessible voice, but also dealing with some really heady concepts, I think, in terms of like the body, disability, sexuality, all of the you know, and I'm like, I don't know anymore whether like I'm interested in those things because they were inculcated in me by Visa, like at Clemson, or if, what have you. But or Sai is like an incredible teacher and also an incredible poet. And I like absolutely have to give Sai all the credit for that work. But like more traditionally in terms of like who did I read that was like really exciting to me when I was young, I was super, super excited by Sharon Olds, especially the like I feel like seeing Sharon Olds in the way that she would break a line at an odd place, um, and have the sentence carry on in a way that like subverted the previous line was something that like taught me about how to do like a regular line break. And now I'll try weird ones and I'll have, more traditional ones. But like before reading that work, I was like not really sure where I should be breaking. Um, which also makes me think of Frank O'Hara's essay, Personism, where he's like, "Oh, you just go off of your nerve, like you don't turn around and shout, I would give it up. I was a track star at Mineola Prep." If somebody's chasing you with a knife, that's like his like deal about poetry. I thought it was cool. I thought, and he talks about like form and like, as far as form goes, like you don't worry about, I don't worry about it too much. Like you want your pants to be tight enough so that everybody wants to go to bed with you, is what he says. So it's like that's a great metaphor.
Oh my
Um,
God. I
I
love that.
know, I know. So I think about that essay a lot. Like if I get like very too like bogged down in should I have this many syllables or that many syllables? Frank O'Hara's big, influence, I would say. But also the things that I was thinking of were definitely Plath, was really important really early on. And Saxton's Transformations, really important really early on. And then I also like a little bit later, like, as I was getting more into grad school and being more and more certain that I was gonna, be married to this, I really loved Khadijah Queen's A List of Famous Men and What I Had On, and also Terrence Hayes' American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin was pretty formative. I think I memorized the first poem of that one for my FSU comp exams. It was fun.
Amazing. I mean, what a catalog. Yeah, just to pull, yeah, th thank you for
Sorry, was that long?
Yeah, this is meant to be long. Yeah, yeah, I love this, but I haven't touched Frank O'Hara's essays yet, and just those two little nuggets that you shared there, are like I'm behind, so that's lovely. And then I wanted to ask, did you read Ballads by Sharon Olds, her latest?
I did, yes. It was thick.
Yeah.
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 We took oh my gosh, I don't want to we took a couple of poems of hers for Agni recently that were just like so sharp. Just still it gives me hope for the future. The way that she's still just killing it. So why what did you think of ballads?
Oh, just exactly that I think that a couple of them are some of her best work, and that's just amazing. Like after that career, just like um to keep getting better, and you see that, in very rare occasions in like sports or art, and like when it does happen, like it's what you hope to happen to like your favorites, and then when you see it happen in an iconoclast in a queen like Sharon Olds, it's absolutely beautiful and hopeful too. Like one hopes to keep pushing and keep getting better, and not settle, not get lazy later
For
in life.
sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I absolutely love that. And then yeah, and then so for people who don't know, you're an editor as well. You said you had taken some of Sharon Olds poems in.
Yes. Yeah. I work at AGNI, which is the flagship literary magazine out of Boston University. And we're so lucky. We get to pick from incredible poets, all the time. And it's always like the most intense conversations about like which of these Sharon Olds poems are we going to take? Which of these poems are we going to take? And I'm just like, I am very much qualified to make these decisions. It's intense, but it's fun. Watching issues come together, and I think I'm trying to think of who we just like every now like, and it's also fun to see like poets start to heat up. Oh my gosh, like you'll see somebody suddenly like putting through the most amazing stuff in the queue, and then sure enough, like they'll be like, "Oh, this poet won an award." And it's like, I saw that coming. It's really fun. I like being an editor. It's like a backstage pass.
Yeah, yeah, because as you're describing that, I was thinking about somebody in the bleachers,
Hmm.
watching a race or something like that.
Yep.
And then you made the metaphor of having a backstage pass. So you're almost maybe a little bit like a coach too.
Gosh, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
I try. I'm a curator. Like I'm looking for, or like a let's see, what would the sports metaphor be? Yeah, I guess like a scout,
Hmm.
like an
Okay.
NFL scout that goes and watches. It's like that one. They're doing real good work.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, you're the first editor I've really talked to here, about that craft. And we'll get to the other questions in a second. But I'm just wondering, how does being an editor contribute to your own process? Like,
Oh my gosh. Mainly, I think, and I've talked about this with the homies at Agni before, is that I just feel a really heightened sense of like opening a poem very quickly with something eye-catching and important, and like really getting to the heart of what I want to say within the first like two, three lines. Um, and having the rest of the poem sort of like work up to meet those, opening lines, I think is like the way that it's changed the way I think about um my own work. And I also just like there are certain things, certain little like images or metaphors or things that I'll notice coming through the queue that I'm like, oh, like I'm never ever gonna write about a bee again, ever. because there's just so many bee poems. I'm like, and that's like, that's a silly example, but there was like a moment where I was like, dang, I've seen like 10 of these in a row. Like, we need to think of something other than the bees. Um, but anyway, it's definitely like heightened my standard for like opening a poem with strength, and with like surprise and intensity between the title and the first line. And it's also heightened my standard for like originality and saying something new, because I do feel like there's so much good work out there, but there's also a lot of like repetition and rehashing that goes on.
Outstanding. No, I think those are great guideposts. I hope people find value in that when they listen
I
here.
hope so.
Great. Then moving on here, if you could change something about how culture views poetry today, what would it be?
I mean, aside from just like wishing that more people knew that we were writing poems and that poetry was happening in the world, I would say that I think that like the idea that poetry needs to be sort of decoded and deciphered is very pervasive among my students. Which I understand. Like, I think in high school, they want them to be working through the language carefully and not, misunderstanding what's going on narratively. But I think that leads them into the classroom with this understanding of like, okay, the goal here is to figure this out, like as though it were some kind of riddle. And my task every semester is to be like, please calm yourselves. And enjoy the language, enjoy the sounds, and try to think more about how this poet achieves a certain effect with language, as opposed to like what is um the secret, riddle of the poem or
Yeah.
something like that. If that makes any sense at all. It's hard because I have to explain this to them too. They're like, those sound like the same thing. And I'm like, they're not the same thing. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways of putting it is the trippy subtext that's like hiding behind. It's like, no, this is a whole experience. Like, what's the sound? What's it make you feel? And yeah, and in your own craft, trying to be clear about those things.
Mhm.
Beautiful, love it. Um, Alrighty, you ready for the word association here?
No,
Alrighty,
I'll try.
you're gonna do great. You're gonna do awesome. And cool. And also, I kind of like I had shared like I recorded another episode earlier. Um,
Mhm.
and so I'll change the words like between people and like was looking over more of your poetry, your poetry that's out there too. So there might be some themes here that you'll recognize. So it's
Oh
gonna
God.
be yeah, it's easy, fun. And again, I love how like people like I pretty much everybody has been like, oh no, Greg, I don't know, it's
Because you can't prepare for it. You can't study. I
like
like to
life.
I guess.
Cool, cool. All right,
All right.
let's do it. Yeah. Football,
Clemson.
technique,
Craft.
alligator,
Green. I don't know.
summer,
Child.
notes,
Um, Music.
teaching,
Frustration.
banana,
Yellow. Sorry.
interviewing,
Um, Spontaneous.
controversy,
Urgh. Tired.
and hope.
Destruction.
Awesome. You did great.
Thank you. I hope so. I'm sorry for alligator green and banana yellow. I'm very color oriented. Those are
Oh,
I would edit those if I could edit them.
yeah. Well,
I can't edit my brain.
yeah, I got a little table flip situation here where yeah, I'm editing, the editor here. But yeah. Well, cool. And then so next up we have a favorite line that you found recently. And
Okay.
you have a stack of books there too, which I'm so happy to see.
Oh gosh. So the stack of books was for the apocalypse examples, and I didn't get to go into them, but I was thinking that I do well, okay, let me do the line and then we'll circle back because I went through so whenever I see like the place where I find my interesting lines and like interesting short things is usually social media, which is embarrassing. But I did see a Mary Ruefle poem come across my Instagram feed recently that I thought was like fully worth sharing. Somebody else like shared this poem of hers called Deconstruction. And I think I'll just like read the whole poem really quick because it's like a couple of lines, but she writes, I think the sirens in the Odyssey sang the Odyssey. For there is nothing more seductive, more terrible than the story of our own life, the one we do not want to hear and will do anything to listen to. And I was like blown away by that. I've been thinking a lot about like confessionalism and the like I pronoun and the way that like, you know, I respect what like, Plath and Lowell and Sexton were doing with like sort of taking ownership of like the kind of ugly parts of their life and putting them into poetry. But I'm always like very worried about like, oh, am I getting a bit self-centered here? And I try to like look outwards a little bit more and not get like too seduced by that eye, if that makes sense. I feel like that's really easy to do. So that was my recent line.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit with that poem for a while, and yeah, I'll share out the links and everything. What a diamond! My goodness, yeah, it hits so hard.
She's
Um,
undefeated.
but one more time.
Mary Ruffalo is undefeated.
I'm amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. But yeah, and speaking to, just kind of the tightrope we have to walk with, like, ego and navel gazing, and then offering something that's, beautiful in the way of art, and hopefully is a point of relation.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think, a lot of people have gotten so much out of, the confessional poets and everything. And I think they've done wonderful things for people feeling free to express things that need to be expressed. That like if we bottle them up and don't make art out of them, then like we see the results. So but there needs to be a balance.
Right, for sure.
I love that. Very cool. And then yeah, if you could speak to recent and upcoming publications of your own.
Absolutely. So I think like the big one that I want to hype up is I do have my second book coming out next fall, the fall of 2026 with Texas Review Press. It's called A Brief History of Accidental Inventions, and it's mostly about I feel like people are gonna say motherhood, but I feel like it's really about like pregnancy and birth and sort of the like immediate aftermath of those. But I was writing a lot about like hunting and gun culture, which I grew up in South Carolina, and sort of felt made me feel like really powerful for a long time to be like a girl, out there like hunting and stuff. And I grew up and I was like, ugh, like that's horrifying. I don't like that. I just had this whole shift and I was writing about that and like trying to like lean into the complexity of that. And then I had my son in a pretty like not not great birth. It was like an emergency C-section. It was really scary. Um, And so I had to like I just everything about what I was writing really changed very quickly. And I would say like the poem that really catalyzed the book is out in Blackbird. It's called Essay Against Metaphor, and it kind of mashes those two together in a way that like I don't think the book could exist without that poem. Um, but yeah, so I have that book coming up, and then I'm also like now that one's kind of done. I'm waiting to hear back like about like edits and stuff I need to change. But in the meantime, I've been writing towards a third collection that's a lot more about like erotic autonomy and sexual shame and like kind of stuff that I feel uncomfortable about. So something that I'm really psyched about in August, I have a poem forthcoming in Adroit, which is my first like Adroit publication that's called When My Dad Calls My Poetry Pornographic. So I'm really excited about that coming out and also terrified about it.
Yeah, yeah, all home runs, so excited for, everything that you're coming out with and the courage and bravery it takes to talk about not only like your poetry really puts you there. It's very visceral and speaking to the breaks too, just even the way like the poems are broken up, it like there's edges there, and sharpened even more by just like the visceral language that you use, so putting that to like the childbirth and everything like that, but especially around like a shift from like gun culture to being opposed to it, that's
Mhm.
exciting. That's ground that I feel like can be very personal, but also on a national level we're seeing that as well.
It was scary. I don't think I pulled it off, as gracefully as some poets might have been able to, but I tried.
Yeah, yeah. And what was that trying like? And like, because yeah, of course we all have doubts. Of course we all have fears and everything like that. But what do you reach for? What do you tell yourself in those moments?
I don't know. I think that for a long time I was just writing like poems about, when I was this age or when I was that age or like, I went like little stories, right? And I especially like right after I had my son, I just didn't have like a ton of time. But I had scheduled this residency in 2020 that got canceled. And then 2 years later, when I like had a full human grow and like become a person out in the world, I was like, okay, I'll go to that residency now since the, pandemic is in a more stable place and I can do it. And just being able to like get that like deep thought. I remember like the day that I was writing Essay Against Metaphor, like I just kind of sat down and started writing like lines that came to mind. And halfway through it, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm writing a poem that like makes some kind of real statement. It was super like electrifying and I like credit it all to just having like time and space for deep thought. Being able to just read a lot and sit a lot and write a bunch of things that didn't work out and you know finally have something suddenly take off. So,
Amazing. Oh, it's so great. Yeah. Well, brave, scary moves are the only moves worth doing, I think, and you're doing it, and I appreciate what you're doing. Very excited to see what you do next. So Dorsey, thank you so much for your time and energy and everything you're doing for the community. It means a lot.
oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Of course. Cool, cool. Well, thanks again. Talk soon.
All right, bye.